The Worshippers and the Way, Chronicles of an Age of Darkness, Volume 9, by British author Hugh. He was born in Britain, lived in a number of places, including New Zealand, I think, and this is Volume 9. There was 10 volumes published in the Chronicles of an Age of Darkness. There was 20 planned, and there was 60 planned for the overall saga. 20 in the Chronicles of an Age of Darkness, but there's also the Chronicles of Heroes and Chronicles of Wrath. This is a 1992 book, and I'll read the blurb on the back. "Enemy behind us," said the single fighter. So Hatch slammed the fighter into a wrenching turn, a turn so savage he had to tighten his stomach muscles to keep himself from passing out. And there was his enemy in his sights, the enemy for real or a drone. Hatch hesitated just for a moment, and the moment was far too long. Osato Hatch and Lupus Lon Oliver had already established themselves as the best of the best at the combat college, which was designed to produce star troopers for the storm force of the Nexus. In just under a year they would face the terminal examinations that would decide which one of them attained the lucrative position of instructor. There was only one instructor's position, and to win it, one would have to defeat the other in combat within the illusion tanks. Okay. Now, as far as I can remember, this is set on Parenga-Renga, and there's a map of Parenga-Renga. There's Parenga-Renga. It's in the middle of the continents on the map that you can find on images of the south side. Now, I'll give a reading from chapter 1. A bit more of another map there. I'll read from the prologue. It was purple. It stood taller than any ordinary man, and its muscles had been pumped up to obscene dimensions by long dedication to that brutal form of existence known as pumping iron. Its hair was heaped up upon its head in a monstrous top knot, for that hair had been uncut through all the days of its life. It wore long flowing robes of the purple which matched its skin, and as it entered the dim dark of a laboratory it looked for all the world like a high priest of one of the wild tribes entering upon the blood-stained gloom of some obscure temple of torture. But this purple-bruted thing was no creature of the wild tribes. On the contrary, this muscle-pumped bodybuilder was Osato Hatch, student of a combat college which had been designed to produce star troopers for the storm force of the Nexus. Osato Hatch had graduated from combat cadet to star trooper at the age of 30, and now at the age of 31, he was pursuing higher-level studies, concentrating on those areas in which he had proved to have special aptitudes: linguistics, law, theocratic socio-politics, and xenopolitics. Therefore, know him from the start as a scholar, an intelligent man with a well-developed understanding of politics and religion, a man who was not so much a creature of his own time as a rightful citizen of any time which could properly claim to be civilized. Okay. So I think I said on previous videos that this, one of the previous videos, this is a bit of an action thing. As you can see, this one's somewhat science fiction as well, as it deals with ancient technology from the Nexus, which they don't really know how to use properly anymore. It's sort of faded technology of old systems, and it's not really used very much in their ongoing life in the continent of Parenga-Renga. Just sort of training it for the Nexus, which doesn't connect with them. Now, I do have on YouTube also some melodies of short melodies of the Chronicles of an Age of Darkness. Parenga-Renga Vibe, I think, is one for the Parenga-Renga. There's Melody Vagan or something. There's one for each of the continents: Yestron, Argan, Parenga-Renga, and Tamarin. I do some songs. They've got different titles, but you might be able to find them either on this website or the other Hugh Cook websites which I have on YouTube. Just as an aside, I thought I'd share that information. Now, Hugh Cook does have other books, but he's mainly known for the Chronicles of an Age of Darkness. He died a few years back, and this was sort of not a really huge fantasy saga in its heyday. It was just a mid-place one, but it was at newsagents in Australia and around the world, I would imagine, equivalent sort of places. It was a bit of a seller to start with. It had a heyday where it was a little bit popular, but it tended to fade, and by this volume, volume 9, sales decline were probably quite marked. So you'd see it with a lot of the fantasy books of the 80s in the bookstore. He was a known author by the fantasy world, at least, and this has been read. You see it in bookstores all over the place, still here and there in the fantasy sections and things like that. Chronicles of an Age of Darkness books anyway. He's not huge anymore, and it's not something which is perpetuated terribly much as an author, unlike some of the big names, but because it didn't quite get to that level. But it's solid reading, and this one doesn't quite have the sarcasm as much as some of the other volumes. It's a little bit more serious in its tone. It's about the average size of a lot of the volumes, and but it's a good enough read, and forms part of the overall story, as it were. And yeah, there you go. The Worshippers of the Way, Chronicles of an Age of Darkness, Volume 9 by Hugh Cook. Cheers.